Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by TurnStone. More than furniture, we're an experience. Go to myturnstone.com/twist to learn more and receive 10% off your first order. And by SnapTerms, online legal protection made simple. Visit snapterms.com and enter the code TWIST to receive a free NDA with every order.
Today on the program, Jeff Lawson, the co-founder and CEO of Twilio, the communications API platform that many startups like Red Beacon and Uber are using to empower their services. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's been at the show 4 or 5 times. He's got a lot to share. Stick with us. We're going to learn a lot about building APIs and developer communities. It's going to be the focus of the program, as well as all the entrepreneurial shenanigans he's been involved in. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, the host of This Week in Startups. On the program today, Jeff Lawson, who is the co-founder of Twilio. Of course, you've heard of Twilio. They make all those amazing telephony and communication platforms and startups viable. They've created this whole ecosystem of APIs and developers creating all kinds of interesting stuff you've heard of, like Uber, which I'm an investor in, Red Beacon, Zarly, Zendesk. All of that, like connecting telephones and apps and voicemail and just great stuff. We're going to hear all about that today. And thanks to our friends here at AngelPad for hosting us. Very nice of them. And before we get started with this great interview, I wanted to just tell you about SnapTerms, which is our sponsor today. They do a great job in helping, I pull it up on my screen here, creating your own terms of service. This is very expensive to do. If you go hire a law firm to do your terms of service, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you don't have a proper terms and privacy policies, you could be risking very costly litigation. There's a bunch of ambulance chasing lawyers just waiting for a venture or angel-backed company not to have a proper terms of service. It's happening all over the industry. And SnapTerms is simple, affordable, fast, and easy to use to protect your site. Go to thisweekend.com/legal and you'll actually see our terms of service. And wow, it's like, I read it like $149 to do this. I paid literally thousands of dollars to do this for my site and like hours and hours of my time, and these guys do it affordably, and you get a bunch of revisions, and the turnaround time is just a week or so. Go to SnapTerms and get started. Only $149. And when you check out, use the coupon code TWIST, TWIST, as in This Week in Startups, to get a free NDA with every order. And you always need that non-disclosure agreement when you're talking to folks. That's a really great value. Thank you at SnapTerms. You can go thank them on your Twitter account. And we couldn't do shows like this where we interview great founders about their careers and about the companies they're building and why they're building them without the support of the sponsors. And SnapTerms is no difference. Again, we only allow people on the program if we use their product. SnapTerms is one of those products that we started using and realized these guys would be a great partner for the program. So thanks to the SnapTerms team. So Jeff Lawson, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You are the co-founder of Twilio. And I don't know when I became aware of Twilio, but when did you start it, and why did you start it?
So we got started in 2008, and the reason was, we're software people. I'm a software person. That's what I've spent my life doing. And so prior to this, I had started 3 companies. And then I went to Amazon, was a product manager at Amazon Web Services. I left Amazon, was looking around at a bunch of ideas.
When did you go to Amazon Web Services? AWS, obviously, their cloud computing platform. When did you start there?
2004.
That's when they started it?
Yeah, it was really small when I got there.
Wow.
And it was fairly, it was like the Skunkworks project in the company. It was a very interesting time to be there.
Was that open to the public at that time?
Oh, no, not at all.
It was,
well, they had, if you remember, the old Amazon Web Services that they launched in like 2000, I'm going to guess, which was, you could get like product data from an API and cover art and all that. And that was called Amazon Web Services.
Right. It was like IMDb and those kind of assets.
Yeah, because you could get it was for people building affiliate things. You could pull product information, pricing, cover art for CDs and videos and all that kind of stuff.
So it wasn't the modern day AWS that we think of like, cloud computing,
not
and
at
storage.
All. Yeah. It was actually really interesting because it created this air cover for Amazon to hire a bunch of people. And say you're working on Amazon Web Services, which is when they hired me in 2004. I was interviewing with Amazon Web Services. So, of course, I did my research and looked into all it was. And during my interview, they said, do you have any questions for us? And I said, yeah, you're hiring, you're staffing up, Amazon Web Services. Is it just cover art for CDs? Is that
I think you have
are we staffing that up huge?
100 too many developers.
And they were like, we're working on some really interesting new stuff, but we can't tell you about it until you're here. And and I pressed them. I'm like, well, I'm really, and they said, I'm sorry, we can't tell you, but just trust us, it's interesting. And I got there on my first day, and literally I knew nothing about what they were building. On my first day, I was like, oh my God, this is really cool stuff.
Right, and it was kind of mind-blowing because up to that point, you were just buying servers, right? People were buying servers, and it was extremely expensive to set up an internet site. It wasn't like plug and play like it is now. Like, just fire up an instance.
My trajectory of my career. I started telling you about my companies I'd started, but the trajectory for my career was my first company I started in '97, and the first was the .com days, all that stuff. We were buying hardware, racking it up in colos.
Right. What would it cost to set up the first website you did? 100,000?
Initially it's like you buy a slice of some machine, but it's really unreliable.
Right.
It was like literally my first web hosting account was a guy who had a shack in a cornfield in Michigan. And he had somehow wired up some connectivity back there.
Yeah.
And he had just this shack, and he had a bunch of machines. And our website, I remember this, our website was hosted on a machine called, the host name was PITA, P-I-T-A. Not the Middle Eastern food, pain in the ass.
Right.
Because he told us at one point he was running like Windows NT, and he said if I move the mouse, it'll crash. But that was like the state of web hosting in 1997, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a few $100s a month maybe, but you got such a horrible product out of it. So when we actually made that a real site, we were buying Sun machines and racking them up.
Yeah, $30,000-$40,000 machines.
Yeah, exactly, right. And you owned them, and you had to love them and stuff. And then my second company, StubHub, we started in 2000. So in 2000, I thought it was amazing because you could rent machines from Rackspace by the year.
Crazy idea.
You didn't have to own them.
Wow.
You signed a 1-year commit contract for this, and that was amazing. Now, my third company started in 2003, was actually a bricks and mortar retailer called NineStar. And at the bricks and mortar retailer, crazy times, you could rent servers by the month.
Whoa.
From Server Beach.
For $1,000 a month? What?
Yeah, for it wasn't that bad. It was like, $200 maybe a month or something.
Right. Still mind-blowing.
And then, of course, now here we are with my fourth company, Twilio, where you can rent servers by the hour from Amazon.
What was this third company?
So it's like you own it by the year, by the month, by the
instance. Hour, moment. Seconds. What was NineStar? You did a physical.
Yeah.
You got off of StubHub, which was a tremendous success, obviously. And then you did a physical.
Yeah, so this was wild. And it's not at all, it's one of those like career left turns that happens.
Yeah, tell me. I feel like I know what NineStar is, but I don't.
Well, you're in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It was in LA.
Okay.
So here's what happened. I was having lunch with one of my investors in my first company, my .com company, and I was having lunch with him, Kevin O'Connor, the founder of DoubleClick.
Yeah, I know Kevin, sure.
You know Kevin, okay.
Of course. I knew him when DoubleClick was at Poppy Tyson in 1995? On 23rd Street in Manhattan. I met him when he had 7, 8 people, and DoubleClick didn't exist. It was just an ad server inside of Poppy Tyson, the ad agency. Go ahead. Continue.
So Kevin was the first angel investor in my first company.
Wow. Small world.
And he was sort of my entrepreneurial mentor when I was getting started.
Brilliant
I was actually in college. In college, in undergrad, we started this company. My first company was called Versity.com. Right. We did lecture notes for college kids. And we gave them away for free online.
Yeah.
And we had over 10,000 courses worth of lecture content online in in spring of 2000. And that's when we sold the company to a competitor who promptly went out of business in the dot-com crash.
Oh, brutal. It was brutal times.
Yeah.
So tell me about this NineStar.
So I was having lunch with Kevin, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm working on StubHub." And I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was a great business, but I'm not a big sporting event goer or concert goer, so the product line we were building wasn't exactly up my alley. It was actually one of my biggest learnings, I think, as an entrepreneur, is you have to build a product that you are passionate about, or else it's really hard to get through some of those tough times. And so StubHub was a great business. I was sort of having this self-doubt about is this the right thing for me to be doing? And I was talking
when it's going well,
it's great. I mean, you can get distracted by the technical challenges and things like that, but it's just through the long term, you got to build a product you are personally passionate about and that you want the world to have.
Yeah.
Right. And so StubHub, great company, great product. Just I sort of wasn't the customer for it,
right.
And that made it challenging for me. So I was thinking about things, and I was talking to Kevin. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm doing. We're building this StubHub company, great product, but I'm not so sure long term what if that's my gig." And he said, "Why don't you come out to New York and live in my summer home in the Hamptons?" And during the winter, of course,
right.
During the summer, get out. My family's hanging out. But and he said, "We've got this. I've got this brainstorming methodology, and let's do some experiments, and let's just try to find a new company to start."
Right.
And I said, "That sounds pretty neat." So I grabbed one of my co-founders from my first company. We went out to the Hamptons, and we did this process for about 9 months, where we did the structured brainstorming process. We came up with about 1,000 ideas.
Wow.
Out of 1,000 ideas, maybe 100 or 150 were half decent. We
50% hit rate, not bad.
No, 15%.
Yeah, 50%.
Yeah, okay.
1.5.
And so half decent or not completely harebrained. We wrote about 20 business plans of those 100 and some. But believe it or not, we got to really close to the finish line with 3. But we were trying to build consensus among us, myself, my co-founder, and Kevin, about which one we were going to go pursue.
Right.
And out of left field, we just sort of got wind of the fact that extreme sporting goods, $15 billion market, all mom and pops, and Walmart.
Nothing in between.
Nothing that was what we called the category killer, REI.
Right.
For hiking, REI does hiking, climbing, camping. Nothing like that for skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, etc.
Right.
So we started NineStar in Southern California to essentially build a really best-of-breed experiential retail store for the $15 billion extreme sporting goods market.
How did it do?
It did okay.
Yeah.
And my learnings again, one, retail sucks. Play, don't retail.
Retail's kind of over, isn't it? You think...
Well, we also started a bricks and mortar retailer at just the time when bricks and mortar retailers were getting killed.
Right.
Right. So if you look at
economy was suffering, not a lot of disposable
economy
income.
in Southern California took a real dive in the second half of the 2000s. But also the category killers who had been sweeping up a lot of retail through the 80s, 90s, the 2000s. Actually, Amazon has started affecting those. I mean, look at it. Circuit City's out of business. Borders is out of business. Right. A lot of the category killers are suffering, and so it was sort of bad timing there. But here's the biggest thing: I had done it again. I started a company where I wasn't the customer.
Brutal.
Right, I'm not a skater.
Yeah.
I mean, I could stand up. You could tell I'm not a skater. I don't have lanky arms.
Not surfing.
I'm not a surfer.
Right. Kevin is.
Kevin is a surfer, and so I'd done it again, and actually doing it twice in a row is really what drove it into my head. And I saw the pattern. Saw the pattern and said, if you're starting something, you just have to really love the product and the customer and be the customer yourself, and that's what your internal motivation is.
Does it make it just easier to make product decisions as well as get you through the hard times?
It's just everything. You just love what you do because of the end result of what you do.
Right.
As opposed to just maybe you love a particular task or a particular hour of the day or a certain thing you're doing. But when you are the customer of it, you actually love the end result, the product that gets created, the customer that you're interacting with, all of that stuff. And you also have a gut feel. Right? You have a gut feel.
Yeah.
You have a compass that you lack. And that's why you see big companies always doing focus groups and stuff. Because they have no compass for what it is they're doing. But when you are the customer, and especially as a young company, you don't have the money for focus groups and all that. You just need to make decisions.
It's one of the reasons Steve Jobs was so great or Bill Gates was so great, because they use those products. I mean, you could picture Bill Gates using Excel or PowerPoint and being like, this needs to be fixed because I need a PowerPoint done next week. And
well, a Keynote. Keynote was created for Steve Jobs.
Right. And that's a perfect analogy. And actually, you can see if you've ever used both of those products, the different individual, I guess, influences on them. One is like elegant and one is just, every possible
nerdy.
Feature. It's nerdy, yeah. That would be the right description. One's nerdy and one's designery. So how did you come to Twilio?
Okay, so I left Amazon.
Yeah.
And by the way, it was interesting thing is I went to Amazon, and this is sort of for other entrepreneurs out there. I had started 3 companies, and both were doing well. It achieved some amount of scale. But if you're building companies and you don't have sort of this notion of what you're trying to build towards, it's hard, right? Especially when you think about process or culture and things like that of not the product, but the company you're trying to build. And I sort of realized that I didn't have that experience. And so I made the decision. I said, I want to go to a bigger company, one that I believe is well run. And I want to learn, what does it mean to be a larger, well-run company? Because if you're building a company, you should have that learning in your head. Learn what you want to replicate and learn what you want to avoid as well, right?
Right.
And then interesting byproduct of that also is if you're a B2B company and you're selling to larger companies, you also have a better sense of what's going on behind the scenes when you're trying to sell
when
them.
they're making their decision.
Yeah.
And who's trying to scuttle whose decision and power plays.
And you can't, I found that as a startup person, I had no context for what was going on at a bigger company.
Right.
Because I'd done it 3 times in a row. And so amazing experience seeing how Amazon is run. Learned
How long
a ton.
did you stay there?
I was there about over 2 years.
Yeah.
And
what's Bezos like? You get to interact with him at all?
He laughs a lot.
And it's
great,
loud. It's earth-shattering.
It is. And I think it's his mechanism of, people interact, if you're like a well-known person, they interact with you a lot, and you don't always have, I think, the energy to always pay attention to what people are talking to you about.
Right.
I suspect that's his mechanism of sort of he has this booming laugh. I didn't answer your question now. What else? But he's a really smart.
Moving on.
Moving on. It's sort of like
moving on.
I actually asked him once, and this is pretty silly. I asked him once. All 3 members of my product team were named Jeff. Okay, 3 out of 3.
Right.
And obviously he's named Jeff. And so I asked him, do you believe there's a propensity at this company to hire people named Jeff? Because that's your name.
Right.
And he gave the bellow. But the awkward part was we were at the urinals at the time.
Yeah, that is kind of awkward. It's kind of an inappropriate.
And then I felt, I'm like, oh no, I made him do that big laugh at a urinal. I hope everything turned out okay.
Yeah, it could be very messy.
Could be a problem.
You learned something there, though, about web services, and you built Twilio.
Indeed. So we started Twilio. So I left Amazon. I was looking at a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
One of the ones I was actually working on was essentially Dropbox, but I decided that was a bad idea, so I didn't pursue
well
that.
done.
A few other ideas. And then I started thinking about...
Did you have an idea for a tablet computer?
I'm not one of those people who claims to have invented everything. I know somebody who claimed to have invented the internet and balsamic vinaigrette.
Really?
Yeah.
Al Gore by chance?
Kevin O'Connor.
Kevin O'Connor claims to have invented balsamic vinaigrette. Impossible.
And the internet.
Impossible. My dad made the first balsamic vinaigrette in 1978. When did he make his?
Well, he has a lab notebook of 1976.
Oh, wow.
See, there you go.
Crazy.
So, but when I was looking at a bunch of ideas, and I realized that at each of my 3 previous companies, I had my software hat on, and we had building software teams, and we had wanted to build customer experiences that were very unique, and we saw that as core to what we were doing in our companies. And those customer experiences often involved communications with our customers, or sometimes communications within the company, or communications with, say, vendors. But communications was the core to the experiences we were trying to create. And as software people, we wanted sort of those building blocks to put together to build those communications experiences. Yet when we looked at the industry and we looked at what people were selling to solve communications problems, we found software vendors and hardware vendors, big hardware, big software, selling you monolithic applications. Right?
So I want to do something in telephony. Well, I'm in for 100 dimes. $100,000, that is, in poker terms. But 10 high societies,
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're selling you, there's big price tags, there's big sales cycles, but even bigger than that, they're selling you a package solution, right? And what we as software people wanted wasn't the big, expensive, time-consuming to install, and then basically it does what it does solution.
Right.
We wanted the building blocks to assemble into the experience we were trying to build. So I'll give you an example. Yeah. When we were starting StubHub, we had made the decision that you could buy a ticket online just like an hour before an event.
Right. I've done it.
And you could get a courier to deliver it to you just in time.
Right. Or meet at the Staples Center.
Yeah, or meet. The courier was a big one. Right. And we found that people would actually pay a lot for a premium service that was a courier delivering you a ticket.
$50.
And it was how we would compete with the scalpers, right?
Yeah, you could get it in.
If you had to buy it 3 days before because you were going to FedEx it, you would miss a whole lot of the market of people who decide to go that day.
Absolutely.
And so we contracted with all these couriers in the major cities where we operated. And we said, great, how are we going to get the ticket from the seller to the buyer in a short period of time, knowing that if we screw up the logistics, your $1,000 U2 ticket is suddenly worthless.
Yeah.
Like this piece of paper is worth $1,000 right now.
Or nothing.
And in 2 hours, it's worth nothing. Right?
Ugh.
And so we said, well, wouldn't it be neat if the minute someone clicks checkout on the website, we automate a phone call to the seller. We say, hey, seller, this is StubHub calling. We got a new job for you. Need you to go, we make a call out to the seller. And we say, hey, seller, congratulations, your ticket just sold.
Right.
So we need to dispatch that courier to pick it up from you. Press 1 if we just send them to your house. Press 2 if we just send them to your office. Press 3 if we just send them somewhere else. Right. Then we'd start calling down our list of couriers and say, courier, we got a job for you. We need you to go to this address, pick up a ticket, deliver it there by 6 p.m. tonight, press 1 to accept this job. So the whole workflow planned out again. Then we looked at our team. We're a bunch of web developers. We looked at the things you could buy, and there were these big monolithic things that
didn't exist.
They just didn't exist. And so we started Twilio to solve that problem, right? To bring communications into the realm of software people.
Wow.
Right? People who look at the world through the lens of software and say, I can solve any problem if I can program it.
Right.
And that's why we started Twilio.
And people went crazy. William Gibson said the street finds its own use for technology, right? You built this, but people started building their own dreams and, crazy concepts on it. I think Burner, was that built on it as well? Like there's a new app out where you can get a phone number just provisioned and then throw it away.
It's an iOS app.
Yeah.
You can click a button, get a phone number, and then all the voice and SMS comes into the app. And the idea is you can throw it away. So use it for Craigslist ads, use it for selling, use it for dating, use it for all sorts of things. Terrorism,
all kinds of great stuff. It sounds like something from like a espionage, like James Bond film or something. What was the most impressive early thing you saw? Because at some point you let the public onto the platform, right?
Yep.
So what were the things in the first couple of months that you just said, there's something here?
First couple of months, man. That was cool.
Yeah.
There was one, there was an ad firm, a creative ad firm who did an app in, I want to say Puerto Rico, around, and I can't remember what beer it was, that they did there's like a tradition and the name of the tradition is escaping me. This is embarrassing. It's been like 4 years now. The tradition is, the tradition that's happened for a long time is you essentially punk your friends by going and Christmas caroling at their houses.
Okay.
So you assemble your posse and you go around and you essentially start singing loudly outside their house at like 3 a.m.
On Christmas or just a random day?
Like leading up to Christmas.
Leading up to Christmas. Okay, I get it.
Okay.
It's pretty funny.
And it's a tradition. And so what this firm built was that, but as an app that called people.
And just started randomly.
Yes.
Awesome.
And so you could sign up your friends to do that. And it was, I want to say Dosi Keys, but I don't remember exactly.
And then what? You just start getting, you see some spike in usage and 1,000 people do it?
In the middle of the night, too. So of course we're like, what's going on here? And then we actually had a conversation with the developer, and we found out what a really cool thing it was. And so that was a big surprise to us. Yeah. What else? We saw really cool stuff early on. A customer of ours called Mobile Commons, great customer, great company. They build mobile marketing stuff that integrates with CRM, and particularly they have a lot of non-profit customers. Like the ACLU and people like that. And so if you're a nonprofit and you want a message to your supporter base, they enable that. And one of the cool things they did very early on was this thing they called text to call, where if you're trying to activate your supporter base, so for example, hey, we want to tell Congress to pass this law or to not pass this law. And they very quickly adopted Twilio within a couple months of our launching, and did this thing where they would text out a text message to, hundreds of thousands of people saying, hey, we're trying to stop this law from passing. Call this number.
Oh, my God.
Okay? And
call this number or press 1 to call your senator.
Yeah, so you call the number that's in the text message, and it was an app built by Mobile Commons that would say, "Hi, thanks for calling the advocacy hotline for this issue. We want this issue to pass because of X, Y, and Z. Now I'm going to connect you to your senator." And your senator currently, they knew based on your area code and all the stuff who your representatives and senators were, and they'd say your senator currently supports it, so thank him for his support.
Wow.
Okay. Then you get done with that call and you come back and it says, okay, now we're going to connect you to your representative. Your representative does not support this bill, so tell her X, Y, and Z are the reasons why she should vote for it.
Wow, that is crazy.
And what's really cool about it is we're a cloud platform, and we always have believed that one of the promises of the cloud was it's easy and inexpensive to get started,
right?
And then it can scale to whatever you need, and that's the power of the cloud. And so these guys, their charts were amazing because they'd be like nothing, through the roof because they just texted hundreds of thousands of people asking them to call.
Wow.
And then back down to nothing, right? And obviously, they get a really scalable infrastructure.
They would have to spend $1 million buying the
boxes and paying multi-year contracts to carriers, all sorts of stuff that we enabled for them.
So when we get back from the commercial break, I want to hear about how you actually built this, because did you build all this infrastructure, and then how did you plug it into Amazon Web Services, and how difficult was that? And then who's using it most now? Because I kind of think the campaigns are using it a whole bunch, but I don't actually know who the big clients are of the service today, and I want to hear a little bit about that. But let me just take a moment to thank our friends at My TurnStone. TurnStone is gorgeous office furniture. You have good office furniture, I bet. You're venture-backed. Or are you cheap? You may be the Amazon guy who just uses the doors.
We do.
All right, here. Now you look at this gorgeousness on here from the My TurnStone. Gorgeous desks. These things cost...
It's like money to me.
It's not. That's the thing. You would think that this looks like $5,000 a workstation. Much less. Much less. Slightly more than your Home Depot doors.
So one of our core values is be frugal. Do they fit?
They fit.
Okay.
That's what you're going to love about My TurnStone. Thank you for working with me. These guys have simple and smart furniture solutions for startup companies, and we use them to furnish my offices this weekend, launch and Mahalo, and hopefully... you'll use them to have gorgeous furniture. And here are a bunch of awesome sites from Hopeful. Yes, it's good to be frugal, and My TurnStone is very frugal. Go to myturnstone.com/twist and get 10% off. That's even more frugal. And this offer is only for you, our loyal Twist listeners. And trust me, 10% off is significant. myturnstone.com/twist. Beautiful offices, Hope. And it sets a tone. A beautiful, elegant office like this with plenty of disk space. And these are very affordable to Jeff's point, and he's super cheap, and so he would know. Thank you, My TurnStone.
I am. You can ask anyone. We do the door desk thing.
Well, that was Jeff's big thing, right? He was like, "Hey, you got to paint your door desk. You had to pick it. You had to pick it and paint it." That was the early days. That's You went down to like some central place, and Did you
have to build it yourself in the early days?
I think they would give you like 2 of those horses, whatever those things are that you like use in a construction site. You pick up a wood desk that was hollow, and they have paint, and you'd paint it some design, and then you'd put your desk together. But they had done that in the early days, and they wanted to keep that sort of tradition going. So
we did. I mean, obviously Amazon's famous for it. We did adopt it. Yeah. Here's what we started when we actually subletted our current office.
Yeah.
We subletted it from the sublease store. I can't remember how those things work. And it came with furniture. So great. That's frugal. And it came with, I think, 50 desks. And we said, we'll never run out of that,
Yeah.
And of course, we ran out of desks, and so we had to make a decision. And so we started doing the door desk thing, which was neat. But here's what really struck for me. We were building out new conference rooms in our office about a year and a half ago, because our initial office was just it was a big open space and had one room, one conference room. But we now had like 50 people, and you can't.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Very much doesn't work.
Open floor plans are great until...
But you got to have the rooms for people to collaborate in a meeting.
Absolutely,
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, phone calls and everything. So how did you build this cloud? Because we talked before
about clouds, not desks.
Yeah, well, let's get back to the clouds. Yes. How did you build all these desks? It's a fascinating discussion for our audience.
I got to tell you, we were putting a conference room table in there.
Yeah.
And we were looking at all the quotes, and our office manager said it's about $5,000 for a conference room table.
That's a little bit up there.
And she's like looking up on the line. It's like, yeah, they're all roughly in that range. And we were about to be resigned to like, you got to pay $5,000 to get a conference room table. And we said, wait, can't we just build one out of doors?
Yes.
And she put together a design that cost us $200, 4 doors, and a groove in the middle for all the cords and stuff.
Well done.
And a bunch of 4x4s. And we built it ourselves. I think we hired TaskRabbiters to build it, actually.
Wow.
And the whole thing cost us about $200.
Well, there you go. There's another way to do it. Let's talk about the servers that you built.
Sorry, is this bad for your advertiser?
It's terrible. The advertisers don't worry about it.
I'm sorry.
Listen,
you don't want to build your own furniture. It's a waste of your time.
Some people have like a maniacal cheapness to them, and they'll like spend, the CEO will spend 8 hours on like the conference room desk, which we can appreciate. Jeff Bezos and the other Jeff included. Other people want to just be like, hey, I want the blown out, awesome, gorgeous desk. I'll spend a little money, but I'm not going to spend $5,000, but maybe I'll spend $1,000 or $2,000.
It doesn't matter. This whole thing's going to be edited out.
No, it's fine. Actually, it makes it more interesting when there's a diversity of opinions. Like, and that's actually part of the thing is like, I actually struggle with the same thing with you. And I used to buy like super cheap desks, and then I bought IKEA, and then I got these, and these are like sort of like right in the middle. And I find like for designers and some developers, like they really like high design stuff. I think the world's moving to design, and then all I need is like one client to come in and see the gorgeous design of the office, and they sign a deal. And I actually think it matters to people when they see like a gorgeous office. Like they just come in, there's like, oh wow, this is a gorgeous office, it's a serious company. Look at this beautiful desk. Yeah, well, it actually will make a purchase order bigger. Yeah, maybe not for an API company. Well,
it's interesting, right? Because there's some people who don't like the desks, right? People who work at Twilio and say, oh, I don't like this. They're kind of cheap. They're not that ergonomic or whatever.
Right. So maybe some of those people, maybe you will have to get some TurnStone. Let's talk about your cloud, though. The hardware, you talked about you had to buy all this hardware.
I have an idea. Can TurnStone comp us some furniture?
He's so cheap. He raised $33 million. He's trying to get a free desk.
We'll compare and we'll write some reviews for you.
I think you just closed your D round because anybody who's so cheap to raise $33 million and then ask for a free desk, I love it. How did you build the cloud? Because you said before how expensive and how kludgy all this stuff was. You made it simple. How did you actually make it simple?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we built Twilio on top of the cloud.
Right.
So we built it on AWS.
Right.
And part of it was having come out of AWS, I really felt like this was the future.
Sure.
Like I said before, my trajectory was buying hardware, year contracts, month contracts, hour contracts.
Right.
But there's something much more important than that notion of contracts or whatever. It is the idea that you can now completely automate the systems that you're building because of that API on top of it. So much, before I talked about being software people, right?
Right.
And being a software person means the more things you have that you can treat as software,
right,
the better position you're in because you can do more interesting things.
Faster, quicker, cheaper.
Well, because it's actually in your domain.
Right.
Because it's a software problem now.
You don't have to go to the hardware people. You don't have to do
So with AWS, we can now treat our infrastructure, bringing it up, scaling it, making it reliable, making it redundant. Any aspect of our software is now completely automated because we can look at it as a software problem.
How did you do that, though? Because it's not like Amazon obviously didn't have the ability to provision a phone number or to pick up the phone and call that.
Yeah,
how did you connect that glue?
So that's how we build our infrastructure is running on Amazon. Then we work with tier 1 carriers around the world. And what we do is we connect to them via essentially telecom protocols, sort of esoteric telecom stuff, in order to make this happen. So we connect up to their networks to be able to actually drop a phone call onto their network to make your phone ring, or to make it so that when you dial a Twilio phone number, that call reaches our cloud, and we can process it.
And that all costs money, the time on their networks. So they were thrilled when you came along and said, hey, we can spur a bunch of innovation that would use more minutes and phone numbers on your network, or they were confused and scared? Which was it?
No, I mean, it's good, right? Because, we're essentially, we are paying the carriers a good deal of money. And that's good. And in an age where, a lot of carriers obviously are in, a situation where their business model and their economics are changing, we are a force that is finding new use cases by opening up innovation for the assets they have. And so that's a good deal for carriers.
They have fixed cost. You're just adding gravy to their already highly profitable networks.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that in the consumer space where they see declining revenue,
right.
B2B is always willing to pay for quality.
Right.
Right, because businesses run their business on the applications that people are building on top of Twilio, and so that's a good thing for carriers, because APIs are actually how you build business applications, and those business applications are mission critical for our customers, and so they pay for quality.
Who are some of the biggest people using it today? Because, and I don't know if you can say that, so if you can't say the name, like let's say if Salesforce was number one or whatever, maybe you could say like a CRM vendor, but what are the biggest use cases and/or clients of the product today?
Yeah, so they're all sorts of things. That's one of the really interesting things about building a platform.
Right.
Is that you really don't know exactly what people are going to do on day one, but you just have this gut feel for, hey, I know there's a lot of demand out there, and so let's see what those use cases are. Like I told you about the mobile commons text to call Congress. Never imagined that in a million years. Right?
You couldn't send a salesperson out to sell that.
Yeah. Right, there's no one's buying the Google AdWords around that one.
Yeah, spam senators with phone calls, lobby. Yeah, it's like what do you even buy? Right, you can't find it.
Yep, but that's what's cool about being a platform, because you unlock the creativity of developers. Right. So some of the really cool stuff I see going on, I see people really reinventing what a call center looks like in 2012 using Twilio, because now it's purely software. So cool stuff. You got an iPad sitting there. I've seen people build a call center entirely on the iPad. So you launch an app on the iPad.
Wow.
And that is a call center. It actually connects up to your CRM. And then using Twilio Client, it's actually your phone too. So now you can make outbound and inbound calls all on an iPad app over Wi-Fi or 3G using Twilio Client. Plug in a headset, and then you've got all the data also about who's calling. Plug into Salesforce, pull up all their call history, their buying history, everything about that customer. And because it's an iPad, you get this really amazing interface where you're like sliding around like Minority Report style.
It's kind of like becomes like Minority
Report. Because like all this data you can imagine that someone goes through when you're interacting with them on the phone, and the iPad's just this amazing interface to be able to sort through that data and get to it. So that's really cool stuff. We've got Home Depot via Red Beacon.
Yes. I remember that.
I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool, because Home Depot acquired Red Beacon. Red Beacon, if you know them,
they launched at the launch conference. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. And so what they were doing is hooking consumers up with contractors who could do things, fix your house, do plumbing, painting, any sort of construction work.
Right.
Home Depot bought them, and they said, this is great, but what we want to do is actually start putting phone numbers up in our stores. Because you got a guy sitting there in the store saying, wow, that's a really beautiful bathtub, but I don't know how to install a bathtub.
Right.
Right? And so they put a phone number there, and it says, need help installing this plumbing stuff, call this phone number, call Red Beacon. And so they started staffing up call centers in a really big way, in a really fast way.
Wow.
And so, but Home Depot, they're building this really fast, but one thing they really wanted to do was to have this great customer experience. Right, they wanted to be able to take your information in near real time, find you a contractor, get all sorts of information, and really coordinate this whole thing and consummate the deal. And that's the value prop of Red Beacon, and now part of Home Depot. And so what they said is they looked at, we could go to a company like Avaya and buy those monolithic call center applications, but what we get is what we get. It's out of the box. It doesn't do what we need.
There's no tweaking or iteration on that, because it's not software.
If you do, you're spending a ton of time and money.
Right.
As much as you spent to buy the thing, you're spending on professional services to
slow,
adjust it,
arduous, expensive.
And so what they said is, building on top of Twilio makes it so easy, because the nuts and bolts are all there and it all just works. But what we get to do is combine them and actually build the customer experience we're looking for. And so that's a really cool one. I like another. Walmart is using us for a bunch of various like SMS campaigns. They did a really cool thing last year. They're doing it again this year. They spoke at our conference last month about. I can't, the exact name of it's probably going to escape me. I'm probably going to get it wrong. It's something about like vote for what goes on our shelf. It was more creative than that.
Right.
But the idea is they have a bunch of new products that they're considering carrying in the stores. And they let consumers vote by text message for which ones they actually think are of interest to them.
And how does Uber use it? Is that when I say call the driver, or the driver calls me, it doesn't need to use the regular phone system?
So the Uber use case is for the text messaging that you do when you communicate with the driver in the system.
So it's masking my number so they don't get my number to text me?
Well, and actually the driver doesn't have any interaction, which is really great. The perfect software people way of doing this, right? I request an Uber. And first of all, they use methods to figure out which one is going to be your Uber driver.
Right.
Once they confirm it, you get a text message right away in real time that says, your Uber is 5 minutes away. He's going to be right there, right? Then when the Uber driver pulls up, they're using actually the GPS on the iPhone, the unit that they have there, to figure out that he's pulling up, and then it triggers another text message to you to say your Uber is pulling up now. And what was really critical to them is that it obviously has to work. If you get that text message 10 minutes later, it's pretty bad.
It has
experience.
to be a fast text, right? There
Exactly.
can't be any text delay on that.
And what they found was that we did a really great job. We focus on quality a lot, and so we did a really great job of making sure the text message gets to you on time every time, and that's really critical. But the other interesting thing is that we've been investing in our global footprint. So we launched in the United States and Canada. Last year we expanded to the UK. Then this year we added 20 more European countries. And then as of a few weeks ago, we're now in 40 countries worldwide.
That's a lot of work. You have to go to each carrier and build this glue each time when you go to a country?
Yeah, so build the relationship with who we're gonna work with in various regions.
What does it take you to onboard a country?
Legal, like regulatory environments around telecom.
Yeah. God, it must cost you a fortune to spin up a city, and it must take months and tons of time.
And the biggest part is the QA. When we work with a new carrier in a new region, we want to make sure that we've got a good partner, that it's reliable, that we've figured out the location thing. Like when we launched in the United States, it was easy for us to say, and we need to buy our inventory of phone numbers, and so we're going to put a whole bunch of them in New York and a whole bunch of them in San Francisco and a whole bunch in LA, like just because it's your backyard. But when you're going global, you have to do a lot of learning about the local markets.
Yeah, what are you going to do in Brazil?
Yeah,
exactly.
Or how about this one? How do you format phone numbers in the local way so that local people who are using your service you don't look like an idiot, right? And so we try to figure all that stuff out too. So
and this
has
never been done before. I mean, if you think about it, like you have people lobbying the United States, congressmen and senators, but that same concept extrapolated if Coca-Cola or Disney had, phone numbers of, a couple of 100 million people in a couple of, dozen or over 100 countries eventually, when you get to 100, they'd be able to send a marketing message to every person on the planet with a phone. I mean, that's mind-blowing.
Well, here's what's really cool, right? So, and here's what sucks. Here's what's really cool. Software people.
Right.
We don't think about geography very often.
Right.
You build a website, anyone in the world can come and use it. You build a mobile app, it's live in the App Store in 130 countries overnight, right?
Yeah.
We just don't tend to think that much. I mean, obviously there's like language translation, localization, but other than that,
and people don't even do that. I mean, they're just like, hey, read English,
sometimes they just
figure it
English,
out.
And so it's like we don't think about geopolitical boundaries very much. It's just sort of like, software transcends that.
Yeah, it's a layer around the planet, and it has nothing to do with geographic boundaries. Why would it?
Yeah, exactly. Telecom, though, by its history, is not like that, because telecom was a geopolitically bounded industry. Yeah. Every country or every region in countries had their own telecom company, oftentimes a monopoly, right?
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to, like Hulu is one of our customers, so they wanted a call center. And so the first call center was in Los Angeles, where their headquarters is, and they had phones on every desk.
Yeah.
And they said, how are we going to build this? And they came to Twilio, and they built that call center infrastructure in the cloud in just a matter of a few weeks. Okay. Then they launched Asia Pacific, and in the old world, you would have had to go to the local carrier in Tokyo, get lines wired up, then go ship boxes over to build,
and then beg and bribe and steal.
And with Twilio, it's pure software, right? So our goal was one API with global reach.
Yeah, that's mind blowing.
So that when you want Japanese numbers now, you just click a few buttons or call the API, and now you have Japanese numbers sitting right next to your American numbers, and running the same application behind them.
Or what if there is a natural disaster like a tsunami that's going to hit 7 countries?
Yep.
And there's one, multinational kind of organization, or
who does that stuff worldwide.
Right.
Yeah. So we've now got 40 countries of phone numbers, but actually from our U.S. phone numbers, you can actually text out to 193, I want to say, countries and over 1,200 carriers worldwide.
It's a great thing for you as a founder then to do all this hard work, arduous, like climbing the mountain, 30-day marches or whatever they're called in the Jim Collins book, but it's massively defensible, right? I mean, it becomes, every time you get another country under your belt, it becomes more defensible.
Well, and what's really cool is that for all the work we do, we're just lifting up our whole community. We have 150,000 companies and developers using Twilio today.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
And so all the work we do essentially is lifting those guys up higher, and that's what is so exciting for us.
And you built a tremendous API community. I mean, that's how I first became aware of it. I was like, I have no idea what Twilio is, but they're sponsoring every developer conference. They're just everywhere. Talk about how you marketed this and just sort of did this saturation of the industry. I mean, it was like there were hackathons and everything everywhere for years. Whose strategy was that? How did you get it underway?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we started Twilio, one of the pieces of feedback I heard from potential investors was, you can't reach developers. Companies have tried and nobody knows how to reach developers. And so I think it became something of a personal challenge for us. Yeah. And we just sort of, we started using the be everywhere, be awesome idea, right? Yeah. And that's yours, right?
It is, yeah.
And
it is actually, yes.
Yes, I take
be
full
everywhere,
credits.
be awesome, yes.
And just started saying, where are developers, both online and offline? Where are they?
Right.
Where do they? There's forums they hang out in. There's Hacker News. There's other sites, and then offline there's hackathons. There's meetups. There are all sorts of events. But the whole thing was you have to be authentic, just be ourselves.
Right.
Go to these events, and we're not trying to pitch something. We're just trying to be ourselves and be there and be developers. And so our developer evangelism team is all just, extroverted, great communicators who are developers.
Right.
Who love working with other developers. Maybe more than they love, sitting down and writing code all day. They like writing code, but they also love, So
you invested heavily in this sort of building what percentage of your spend, ballpark in the early days did you spend on developer relations as a founder? What did you say? We need to spend 20% of our money on this, 10%?
It's our, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's our marketing budget, right? One of the things we found early on is you can't necessarily buy AdWords for developer platforms.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, there's a few instances where
developers are blocking the ads anyway and don't click on them.
Yeah, and developers hate ads. And so it's you think about where...
The worst way to market.
Where can we find our customers? Well, AdWords are a pretty tough way when you have a platform. Right. So it's not that you can't buy AdWords, but as a platform, it's hard to... AdWords are so transactional.
It's almost like the use of the product is the best marketing of it.
It is. And that's what's so cool, because there's this magical experience of using Twilio, of writing a few lines of Ruby and suddenly phones are ringing. And so our goal was, let's just put it in the developer's pocket, right? Let's just put the tool in their tool belt. And we know from our experience that the use cases will come up where they need to use it. Yeah. But our job is just to introduce it to them, hopefully give them that magical experience so they know what's possible. And then when their business needs that use case, they will know to pull Twilio out of their tool belt and use it.
Is telephony, as we know it, with phone numbers and texting going to go away? And are we going to sort of get to this, iMessage on the iPhone is starting to feel like, okay, half my calls with my wife are over Wi-Fi using FaceTime or iMessage, and on my desktop I'm using GoToMeeting for every meeting, and people are pinging me on Skype, and it just feels like phone numbers themselves are becoming less relevant. You guys have sort of given them the second lease on life, I think, in a way. But is the future I'm going to route to Skype, I'm going to route to GoToMeeting, I'm going to route to iMessage, and have you built those plugs, and is that even possible? So
I think certainly how we use phones and how we communicate, and even what is a phone, is changing very rapidly. You think about it, a phone used to be just that, a phone.
Right.
Now our phone is a computer.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the
smartphone.
One of the apps on that computer is phone. Right. I mean, literally on the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And so this is obviously changing very fast. But the great thing about what's going on is it's moving from being tied to the device. It used to be a phone. A phone did, you picked it up and it made phone calls, and that's that was the extent of it. Yeah. But now it's being moved into the application layer. Again, literally on the iPhone. The phone has been moved into the application layer. What this signals is that the opportunities are out there for the great software people to be building this future.
Right.
And that's why we built Twilio Client, which lets you make phone calls from iOS apps, Android apps, browser-based apps with JavaScript, or traditional phones via the phone network.
Does the iPhone and iOS try to block that, like phone calls inside and routing too? No. I know they've been kind of like prickly about certain things.
At the very beginning of the App Store, I think they sort of were hesitant, but for the past 2-3 years, it's been pretty much, people can build any kind of app.
Even the app for the burner app we talked about before for Craigslist, or if you're a girl and you meet somebody at a bar and you don't want to give them your actual number, give them a burner number. That one to me screamed of, I don't need, if I have Wi-Fi access, why do I need to have a phone at all, like a carrier? And then you see Freedom Pop came out with their iPod Touch case. Mm-hmm. So now the new iPod Touch has a 4G case, and kids are using Voxer, kids are using Snapchat, kids are using iMessage and FaceTime. Do you think that this idea of like everybody's going to have a phone number that sort of starts to go away, and everybody just has like a destination on an IP network kind of thing?
The phone number is an interesting thing. So yes, phone number is a little weird. It's like an IP address.
Yeah,
but
bizarre.
we don't use IP addresses to go to Amazon.com, right? We go to Amazon.com. And so phone numbers are a little bit of a vestige of, that's a computer, or not a computer, that's a technology routing address.
Right.
That has nothing to do with what you're trying to achieve when you communicate with someone.
Right.
Right. And so in some ways, you're right, they're antiquated and they're unnecessary, and really what matters is the address book or the people or whatever. The thing that is the thing that I think will take a long time to change is that has become the sort of standard way to communicate how to reach me.
Right.
Right. So when there's a billboard, phone number.
Right.
Especially with people communicating with businesses, right? When there is when you're filling out a form field because you're looking for to buy a car,
right?
There's a phone number field. There's no other field like
for voice communication.
Yeah, for voice.
I mean, sometimes people put a Skype, but it's not like Skype could really work for that. It doesn't.
You get like friend the business.
Why is Google giving up on Google Voice? It seems like they put all this effort into Google Voice, and then it sort of became stagnant. What's your view on Google Voice?
Interesting product. I from the outside, it does appear that they haven't been investing very much in the.
Yeah. It certainly didn't become a platform like you guys have built.
Well, I don't know if they intended it to become a platform.
Yeah.
I think they intended it just to be an interesting service, and maybe they achieved their goal. Maybe their whole thing was they wanted to train the voice recognition that they rolled out last week.
Yeah, maybe.
It could be it. I mean, it's just sort of an expensive proposition to give everyone, communications for life, but we'll see.
Well, what happens now when you hit the scale you've hit?
I think Hangouts, by the way, are really cool.
Oh, Google Plus Hangouts? Yeah. What do you like those? What do you like about them?
They're just pretty seamless, pretty high quality.
It is stunning how stable they've become. It's pretty stable. I don't like the controls. It feels like I have a lack of control, and it almost feels like they went for an anarchist. Like not anarchy, but not anarchist, but more like almost like a democratic view of conferences. Like nobody's in charge, really.
Yeah.
You don't.
Well, that's why they're called Hangouts. Not like they're not really business oriented.
It's not go-to meeting where So I just wish like I could pick whose microphone was on, or
But I think it's probably just not designed for that. I'm guessing, but it's a cool experience.
It is. It
I
seems
like where
to
that's
work.
going.
Yeah. So what happens with your company? Like, you get to it seems like, okay, you're a like nerdy developer. You finally figured out like this is what I should be working on. Not a surfing company, like not a ticket company, because I've never bought scalp tickets in my life and I've never gone surfing. So what am I doing in those businesses? Now you get to
gone surfing. It just wasn't pretty.
It was ugly.
Oh, it was really bad.
You never heard my surfing story, right?
I wasn't buoyant at all.
It's actually kind of worth telling. I'll tell you my surfing story. I'm 19 years old. I'm in Huntington Beach. I go and I get a wetsuit and I get a surfboard. I go walk down to the beach. I'm no idea how to surf. Put the wetsuit on. I'm getting my ass kicked 8 ways to Sunday. Just can't get out past the waves. I come walking back in. I'm broken. And there's 4 or 5 really beautiful girls. I'm 19, 20 years old. 4 or 5 beautiful girls. And they are pointing at me and laughing hysterical at me. And I'm like, this is the most humiliating moment of my life. Literally, up until that point, this kid from Brooklyn comes out to California, jumps in the ocean, and gets his ass kicked. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to stand for this. So I just walk up to all 5 of them, and I said, what's so funny? It's like the first time I've ever done it. I got my ass kicked, but, at least I went out there and I tried, And they looked at me, and they were like, dude. And they're pointing at my chest. And I said, what? They said, dude, your wetsuit. And I was like, what, like high five? And they go, it's on backwards. And I said, what piece of male clothing has a zipper on the back? Every piece of male clothing, jackets, jeans, you zipper on the front. They're like, you are an idiot.
Well, how could it even...
I got her phone number.
Do you have a
It was very weird.
Do you have a symmetric body?
No, my body's not symmetric, and I realized it like, oh my God, I have like this like puff in the front, and the back is too tight. It was bizarre, but I got the girl's number, so that was pretty cool. Anyway,
because you said the puff in the front isn't actually air.
Yeah, exactly. Hey-oh. So this is like a nerd dream in a way. Like, you've got this like API company, tremendous success. It's churning. It's making money. All the VCs love you. It's like you're on the right trajectory. What do you do next? Because I'm sure Amazon wants to buy this. I'm sure everybody in there, wants to own this like coveted layer of technology. What do you do? Are you going to go down to the like layer that Amazon's on? Are there things that you can layer onto it? Or is there enough for you to just keep building this sort of slice, the communication slice?
Yeah, this is very easy, and to me, there's only one thing that you can do, which is focus on your customer, and build things that solve their problems, and keep your ear to the ground, keep shipping, and keep building things that your customers value, right? And that's really the only recipe, and that's really the only strategy that makes sense.
What do they want, though? What do the customers want? Like, what do they say? Like, hey, why don't you just go ahead and build server farms for us and go compete with Amazon? Or what are they asking for?
They want us to continue helping them to communicate better with their customers, with their vendors, with their employees, in all sorts of interesting ways.
Wow. You're a pro. I can't get anything out of you. I'm trying to get a little peek down the roadmap. Just a video conferencing. What's
you want to talk about furniture again? We can go there.
well, seriously, give me a little peek down the roadmap. If a Twilio person who is just absolutely enamored with the product is listening, and there probably are many, and they will be when we tweet it and stuff like that. What's something exciting coming?
Yeah,
what's something exciting?
I'll just tell you generally speaking.
Yeah.
Things that are really exciting to us. So number one, the international expansion. Right.
Of course.
We just
Brilliant.
We spent the last year growing out to more and more countries, and we're adding more and more support in those countries every day, and adding more and more countries every day, and that's really exciting for us because it adds value to our customers. Here, who have their customers everywhere around the world, like you said before, but it also opens us up to people, developers in those markets who can now play with a service that's local to them, and so that's really exciting. And the second thing that I think is so exciting is Twilio Client. So this extends Twilio with voice over IP and presence into your iOS apps, your Android apps, your browsers. WebRTC just shipped on Chrome this week, and so there's a lot of excitement there about the browsers getting more and more capable with a best of breed, AV and
how does that work? Explain that for the non-technical folks.
WebRTC essentially,
RTC is
real time communications. Right. So you know how Flash is often used to say access your camera or access your microphone. But Flash has some limitations.
Yeah, Steve Jobs would say so.
Steve Jobs would say
98% of all crashes on our platform are caused by Flash.
And so what's cool is that what Google has done is they've led the charge in this new technology of WebRTC that essentially takes what Flash does but puts it into the browser, so you actually don't have to spin up the plugin in order to access the camera and the microphone.
So much better.
And it's got a great networking stack, a great set of codecs for AV transport. And so what it lets you do is essentially do the same things you could do with Flash, but in really awesome new ways. And Firefox is starting to support it. Opera is going to support it. IE has a unique take on it, but we'll see where that goes. I don't know.
Yeah, Microsoft supporting open standards is a mixed bag sometimes.
Yeah.
They've gotten better,
You never know.
Yeah.
Safari would be interesting. And so what we've got essentially is a Twilio client. If you're running Twilio Client in your browser app to make calls, like the Red Beacon example of Home Depot before, they've got all these agents sitting at computers just in Chrome with a headset.
Genius.
Yeah, there's no phones. They're not putting boxes.
They don't have to load some
anywhere.
software or anything. It's just going to be like all those like live support things where you're on a website and you ask for live support. It'll just turn on.
Yeah, how can I help you? And you can just talk right into your browser.
That's going to be mind-blowing.
And so very cool. And so that's what people are building on top of Twilio, with Twilio Client. And WebRTC is cool because it just creates a great customer experience for browsers that have WebRTC.
It's going to really help like the Quoras and Expert Exchanges of the world. Remember Expert Exchange? I don't know if they're a client. Yeah. But they would do some telephony to connect you with an expert for $1 a minute. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how it happened.
They started out great, and then they put the paywall, it made it look like it was blurred out, but it was really just a giant GIF.
Yeah, it was
Like,
weird. But they were going for that like dollar a minute. Then they went with psychics. Like everybody always goes psychics with that paper stuff and sex calls. I don't know if they were sex calls, but I think they did psychics. But imagine if Quora
SEO for a long time.
Oh, it was so annoying.
But then you click through, and it was so annoying that eventually
it was like, oh, I need help. Oh, I have to give you money. Ugh. Yeah. But I mean, imagine Quora with that webRTC running in it.
A customer of ours, Dan Martell.
Yeah, who is Dan Martell? I know him.
So Dan's an entrepreneur. He's from Canada. He moved down here a few years ago. Yeah. One of the things he's been working on, or actually the thing he's working on lately, is called Clarity.
Oh, I know. FM. Yes, of course. Yes, I know Dan. Yes. He was almost at the launch conference, yeah.
Yeah, and so he uses Twilio to connect essentially experts and people needing advice.
Right. Yes, exactly that concept. And do you guys handle billing too? Or is that not in the current platform?
So we like bill to my mobile phone kind of thing?
Yeah, not bill to my mobile. I'm assuming you do that.
No, we don't.
You don't?
No, that's like...
that's a big problem. A hairy problem. Hard problem.
We just found that people don't necessarily want that.
It's kind of cheesy, bill to my phone, right? Like, who wants to be going through their Verizon phone bill and trying to find the charges for content? But what about, like, I want to have something fire off and have a Dawala or PayPal kind of payment? Are people like sort of connecting you with that?
We've had a bunch of cool things done on top of us.
Yeah.
So Venmo, I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah, I do. Actually, Gary Vaynerchuk sent me $1 through Venmo.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. He's like, I sent you $1. And I was like, why? And he's like, because Venmo is cool. And I was like, oh, it is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And in fact, inside of Twilio, we all use it to pay each other back for lunch and all that kind of stuff.
Basically just text each other how much money.
Pay $5 to Gary V. And then he gets a text message that says, you just got to pay $5.
And then you can pull it out of the account somehow at a website.
Yeah, and then you can put it in your bank account and just use it to pay other people. And so that's cool. They just got bought by Braintree.
What's Braintree? I didn't even know that.
The credit card processing company.
Oh, very cool.
That's they've got an API and all that kind of stuff, and they got bought by them for mobile payments. And I mean the Dawala guys. What's neat about APIs is that you can integrate, right? Easy. So the Dawala guys, I'm pretty sure, have done some cool hacks. I don't think it's a product they offer yet per se, but there's a lot of experimentation here going on. I
wish that Twitter payment thing had worked. I know John Borthwick at BetaWorks in New York was working on Twitter payments. Like
really,
he had some kind of app where you could I could just be like, oh, at Jason gives, this to at, whoever.
Well, essentially you just need an address space, and PayPal did it with email addresses.
Yeah.
People are doing it with phone numbers on top of Twilio with SMS.
Yeah.
And then, Twitter is another way you could do it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, continued success with the project. I know it's going great, and I'm sure you're staffing up on a pretty regular basis. Hiring developers is never easy, so...
Yeah, if you're interested in seeing some of those door desks, come by Twilio.
Come by. You're not going to get TurnStone, but it's the next best thing. A $50 desk. You may get splinters. It may not be beautiful, but, whatever. Jeff's cheap,
you
but he
really
plays a good
work at a company that buys better furniture than Twilio.
Listen, if you want to work for Jeff and you have a terrible desk, you work for Jason, you get a great desk. Whatever. It's not... It's just... But one of the benefits. I always tell people first name at company name sometimes reaches the founder, I'm assuming. And if you're a great developer...
I believe that Jeff at Twilio is easier, but first initial last name will also do it.
You guys are also crazy hiring, I bet. Crazy hiring right now?
Yeah. It's a tough, it's a tough market in San Francisco. A lot of companies here.
How are you solving it?
I think one of the great things about us in particular for developers, we're a developer product, so back to my idea of I want to build something that I can use.
Right. It's rewarding.
It's rewarding, and it's cool because you're the customer of it, and you get why you're building it. And so any developers who want to help build the future of communications, but also build APIs that other developers are going to use.
You getting a lot of Facebook developers now? I hear a lot of Facebook developers are sort of leaving and moving on to their next adventure.
I don't know. Everything. It's not like dating where you have one spouse significant other at a time.
No, somebody told me that day, oh god, a lot of Facebook.
I left Facebook. Now I'm. You mean Facebook employees or developer? Oh, I think meant the developers.
No.
Yeah, most people do have only one employer at a time.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah, I'm saying not developers I'm leaving the Facebook platform for Twilio. No, it's developers who work there I'm fully vested. I'm looking for another adventure. A lot of resumes I hear leaving the old Facebook campus.
Yeah, I hear that a bit, but you hear that all the time about companies. And there's a lot of developers, a lot of great people at Facebook. A lot of people, I'm sure, want to. You
try to hire people outside of the country? Is it going to be a vibe
of the country?
Yeah, like I mean, if you're opening at all these other
visas, right?
Well, I'm saying, are you building up
remotely?
Yeah, are you like sort of? Because I hear from a lot of people like it's so bad here that like screw it, we'll just get 50 people in Canada coming out of university and we'll just train them up. And
we currently do all of our product and engineering in San Francisco.
Right.
It's great. I mean, I think we have a great ability to attract developers, right? Because there's an excitement about what you're building.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing about from a developer building Twilio standpoint, which is one of the things that jazzes up a lot of people at Twilio, is that we're building stuff that makes our customers into heroes. So we're building for the builders.
Right.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, that makes it rewarding. And the stock's going to be worth a lot of money. Jeff can't say that, but I can. Like I know people this company's going to get bought for a lot of money. I have a good feeling. I think you're going to have a great 2013.
Focus on customers.
Focus on the customers. Head down. Don't worry about exits or raising money. That's all good advice. Hey, Jeff Lawson, great job on the program. Do what you love. Do not build a surfing company if you wear your wetsuit backwards. That's just really bad. Hey, thank you, my TurnStone, for dealing with Jeff absolutely destroying the commercial read. Thank you. It's so great. At SnapTerms, thank you so much for making really affordable.
I have no qualms with them.
You have no qualms with SnapTerms? If you need to, you know what, $149 for SnapTerms, Jeff will do it for $129.
Make your own out of a door.
Listen, you can photocopy the Twilio.
Whittle a door into your terms of service.
Absolutely, absolutely. Continued success. Everybody go, if you're a developer especially, check out Twilio. It's awesome. And follow Jeff at Jeff, IEL, on Twitter. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups.
Thank you very much, Jason.
You rocked it. Awesome episode.